Hi, everybody. So we are here today to talk about the ban announcements that were on March 31st and how it coincided with our predictions.
So, are you feeling satisfied? First question.
I mean, they did ban something like Spawn, which I'm happy about. I think it's going to open up a lot of stuff, and Troll will definitely hurt the reanimator archetype, especially
Mm-hmm.
the blue black one, which was unfun to play against. But I don't know if it's going to be enough to fully stop that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I just that deck is so scary. I could do so much
Yeah.
that I don't know if that's going to be enough for everything.
So, I would say starting from Microspan, I think that was the one that I was looking for the most because I think we all thought they would touch something from Eldrazi, but well, first of all, a lot of people were, including myself, thinking very likely no changes. So I'll say I'm happy that it's not no
I
changes.
fully agree.
Microspawn, uh, I'm excited for. I am still thinking about how it's going to affect the meta a little. Um, we're just talking about which control decks we thought might come back into the format because of it. And I was thinking that Beans might be even better positioned than Jeskai, which are the two control-ish decks that I can think of. Lance is another one that might come back purely because it's less appetizing to play blood like Moonstumpy, maybe because of less Eldrazi, but we also have to see if actually Eldrazi just drops dead from the earth or is still like a very big contender. So looking forward to seeing more of that as well.
Yeah, and I mean
Uh,
another deck that definitely caught strays and is going to be hurt by this is Cloud Post. I mean, Cloud Post
yeah,
is very reliant
100%.
on that Micah Spawn, so it'll be interesting to see if that deck has stuff going on with it or not.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like most likely they're just gonna go back to Cavern for what's his name? The giant. Forget the name.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Annual Titan.
Yep.
And so that is gonna be something interesting to see. Um, for what else was basically those are like the two decks. Um, my reasoning for Beans over Jeskai is that a lot of the decks that would now be hurt for by control, most of them already just play stock up again, and I'm thinking mostly of Omnidel, which we've seen a lot of since stock up became legal. Um, from the Jeskai perspective, it used to be just Narset was like the MVP for that matchup as Jeskai, but now there's enough not draw cards that you can just move around it. I think versus Beanstalk has ways of like staying up ahead, in better in cards, and the removal is also better. Like just show and telling omniscience into Leyline Binding, for example, you already stop the omniscience from doing much. So we'll see how that turns out in that particular matchup specifically.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
also go ahead.
what I was gonna say, like, if we look at the showcase, so this is prior to the bans, but
Hmm.
if we remove the decks that have been banned, so the two Reanimator decks, and the Eldrazi deck, so three decks that are banned, it leaves us with two Nadu combos that made top eight: Lands, Omni, and Breakfast. So Nadu's
Yeah.
definitely a card to look out for, as
Do you
it
think
did
it's
well.
gonna be the next to be watching card?
I think it's definitely a card to watch out for. I don't know. I mean, I think the big thing, right, is if we have less Eldrazi and less
Hmm.
Moon Stompy, maybe Delver can come in and just
Yeah.
with Pyro have a good matchup against that. Maybe those decks become less appealing, especially with the freed up sideboard slots, because Consign's definitely going to go down maybe one or two, so that's two more slots. Yard Hate's going to go down a little bit, which is going to be some more slots.
Hmm.
But we also see all lands in the top eight, so like you mentioned, I definitely think lands as a control archetype could see stuff, and Beans is
Hmm.
pretty good versus a lot of like creature heavy stuff. Can it beat Nadu? I don't know. It really depends on if they can get the value drain out before Nadu can set up a board. So it's definitely going to be I feel like it's going to be combo heavy with combo decks doing very well that they've been doing well for a little
Yeah.
bit, and then maybe Control will be able to form a plan. But that's how it always is with like bans and stuff like this, where it can be rough to figure out the meta in the first couple of days to know what you want to do.
Hmm. I think into the Nado decks, I'd much rather be Beans than Jeskai, though, in terms of control. Um, you pick up more cards, have more removal as well. You don't have as many sweepers usually, but you also like recoup on cards compared to the Nadu, like the Jeskai decks against the Nadu. I think you have better sideboard. I'm a psycho, so I play Humility with Jeskai, so that's always great against Nadu. But um, I think we'll see. I'm excited to see if Control can actually come back or not, and see if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
And I'll just like go ahead.
no, please.
I was just gonna say, like, moving on to the troll ban. Surprisingly, it is the one that makes me more hopeful with a lot of quotations from the two bans because it is not to me a ban that is immediately apparent that could make an impact. You know what I mean? Like there is a lot. It at least to me shows a little more thought
Yeah,
about what is happening. Now, I think it's insufficient, but it does at least seem like there is a little bit more thought put into what is being banned and for what reason. I like the article that was written, and the person that wrote it. I know that they were asking questions on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever. I'm not on social, so I don't know, but I've heard good things from the folks that do engage in those.
100%. And I think one of the big things they did mention is the like if I pull this up right here is just they mentioned that while the format has looked pretty balanced, if you look at the numbers, a lot
Mhm.
of the legacy players didn't like the feeling
Yeah.
of what the format was, and that was
Yep.
part of what they took into account for these bans,
Hmm.
which I think is important because when you look at these older formats, it becomes less like the more expensive cards are, especially outside of online,
Hmm.
the less it becomes just about is it all fair on paper, but the more it becomes about are you having fun because it's a game at the end of the day. And also, not everyone can move decks around often. Online, obviously, with the rental services, a lot of people are going to be able to play every deck and not have to worry too much, or play like
Yeah.
80% of decks if they can afford a rental service, which is still not cheap. But you look on paper, I mean, reserveless cards are crazy. If you spent your whole life playing as a Delver and you only have Volks, and all of a sudden Delver's unplayable,
Yep.
um, you're going to feel pretty bad. You're not going to be able to play what you want, or you're going to, but you're going to go 4 at your locals and at 1Ks and stuff like that. So it's important that the format is both fun as just a format to play because it's a game, but also fun as in what Legacy represents as a whole and curating the format to maintain that atmosphere.
Hmm. Which I feel like is something we've been somewhat missing ever since basically Eternal Weekend. I would say where it's unclear what Legacy's identity is right now. At least to me, a little bit. There's a lot of Ancient Tomb decks, and I like that there are more of them. Surprisingly enough, even though I'm a control deck, I like a little bit more diversity in a way. Same for the Wasteland base decks. There have been more of them. But honestly, at least in like the previous meta, there was like control decks were playing these Wasteland shells as well. Just to control deck because we play like two Teferis or whatever, and that's just like like a complicated situation to be in. Um, so yeah, we'll see. I'm hopeful about what's gonna happen. Even though I think we could have probably you know gotten maybe one more ban would have been fine. Um, Anything more to say about the troll ban from your side, Matt?
I mean, I think the big thing
Mm-hmm.
is while these bands are like, I'm very happy that there was changes, and I think Wizards just did a good job. It's hard to feel as excited as I feel like we would be,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because while I'm very excited to see how the format develops, there's a
Yep.
very big chance that this could just maybe have not been enough, and having to wait another 3 month window, and that not really being addressed too much during the look at all the messages and everything written. Yeah, I think it's something that definitely needs to become more addressed,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes you more excited to brew and do all these things that we enjoy doing, that we like working on, when you know that, okay, maybe the format's not in the best right now, but at any time Wizards can step in and make these changes. But when you set a deadline on, like, okay, well, I have to wait for another 3 weeks before Wizards decides whether they're going to ban stuff or not,
Yeah.
like, you're just not going to feel as motivated because you know it's going to happen. And so why try now? Why not wait the 3 weeks, and then by the time you've waited, if Wizards hasn't made the correct updates, or if it turns out it wasn't enough, then you just end up having to wait another 3 months, and it ends up in the cycle where you're always looking towards the next ban,
Yeah.
because no matter what, you're worried about maybe your deck's going to get banned, so maybe you got to figure out what to do if it's going to get banned, or you don't like playing against its current meta, or any of them, like a million things. So you're always looking towards that next ban period, which I don't think is healthy as a player base, as it
Yeah.
Wizards shouldn't be making you focus on that. And I just don't think it's a good way of solving these problems where if something should be banned, we should just ban it. There shouldn't be a
Yeah.
wait, especially because the longer you wait, the more likely people are going to buy into the deck or feel like they have to. For formats like
Mm-hmm.
Modern, where you see Underworld Breach, a lot of people felt like they had to buy into that for the RCs, and they basically did. The deck was unstoppable, and that's why the card's
Yeah.
banned today. Um, but it just, I feel like it leads kind of a bad taste in your mouth having to wait for these ban
Mm-hmm.
announcements. I think it would be much better if Wizards just got rid of them or made them more common. If it was like every month at the end of the month, that'd be perfectly fine, I think. But definitely
Yeah.
would like that to be addressed in the future. Because while I'm very excited for this change and to see control come back, hopefully, Delver archetypes and all more mid range, I am worried that if it's not enough, are we just going to have to wait another 3 months to see if we can get a good format? But I'm very
Mm-hmm.
happy to see that Wizards is actually paying attention to the format, and
Yeah.
they wrote a lot of stuff. What do you think?
Um, I think. Okay, so now comes like the doom and gloom from my side, right? There's two layers to it. The first is that I feel relieved by the bans, but not excited, which is a shame. I was mentioning this on Discord to someone else, which is that I doubt that if you've left the format because of you didn't like it or you thought that something else was more interesting, these bans will not address that, right? Like if I had left the format because of how the meta was, these bans do not make me want to come back necessarily, right? Both because they are like potentially not as um, you know destructive with because if you look at modern, right, like and obviously Reanimator was not at the level of, that Breach was right now, at least in the latest
Yeah,
iteration. But everyone knew that the Breach was getting banned. But and so if you left modern because Breach was too untenable for you, you could come back because of that. This ban, unless you specifically left because of Microspawn, I don't know that like Reanimator is probably still a player, it's just not gonna be as resilient, and some of its bad matchups are gonna be worse. Maybe it needs to go through some changes and stuff like that, but it's still a TBD, right? But there's necessarily nothing that excites you about like the format changing. It's more like it's going back to a previous state, which may not have been good for you regardless, right? So it's kind of like a compounding of things that keep happening that maybe make the format less like you would enjoy, and so this would not bring you back. That would be the first thing. And the second thing is like honestly, I feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. The bans in December to me made me think like, okay, Wizards just has their hands full with Vintage doing like two restrictions, and what's his name, and Modern doing like bans and bans like a crazy stuff, right?
yeah,
Popper is like on its way because they have their own panel and they do a great job, a phenomenal job. But Popper is very specific because you can make drastic changes because it impacts the wallet of people very little in a
yeah,
way. Like a deck is like $60. It's not like in CDH where like you make two bands and you just wipe hundreds of dollars worth of money from collections sometimes.
yeah. And I mean,
Um,
Pauper did get a really big shakeup today, which
yeah,
is what I would have
exactly,
liked for Legacy.
exactly, 100%. And that's what I'm saying, right? Like it was clear to everyone that Modern just needed Breach at least to just be touched, and that was fine. Standard, I don't know much, but I haven't heard much about being bad. Maybe some cards from Lumboro were like maybe over the top, but it seemed like it was fine. Vintage at most were like the stock up, and but like the thing is like it seemed like they paid more attention to other formats in December, and we were like, okay, this is gonna be our, March will be Legacy's turn because you have the resources you have, and we're waiting in line for our turn. And for me, it felt like this would be the Legacy's turn for the bands, and I expected something a little bit more daring, maybe. I don't know that Legacy was as bad as Modern. I only play Legacy for the most part, but um, modern players were very excited after the bans and unbans, and I would have loved. We spent more time talking about unbans than bans on our last video because I feel like that reflected a lot of the community where like unbans were almost a given for a lot of people that there would be some, right? And that was all exclusively because they did a lot of unbans in modern. And now you see unbans in Pauper as well. And I'm
Yep.
like, well, there's plenty of cards in Legacy that would make it. Even if because like when Man's Desire was unbanned, like a lot of boomers came back because they loved the Man's Desire decks, right?
Yeah.
Even though it didn't pan out, but at least you got some excitement. There's plenty of cards in the banned list in Legacy that you could just unban, have no effect, but still bring people back. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That's basically it. At least I'm excited to see how we can go back and if we can get back to at least playing a little bit more control. But I think that a lot more could have been done, especially given like what I feel is the community being a little worn out from a long meta that was very stale. Even though on paper it was very diverse, most decks were very similar in a way.
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, sure, you can have like 10 or 12 decks that just share a lot of like space in the top eight, but like a lot of them are just doing very samey things. It's like if you're an ancient tomb deck, you're like, topping up at the ring, and it's just about whether you're like adding red for disruption or just like K command and Mega Spell for disruption in a way. And then, or is you just like trying to go like the combo route, with Painter and Omnitel or whatever. And then there's like the Wasteland Days, like the Days Wasteland Shouts, which is basically just like which flavor
Yeah.
do you want to finish off? Do you want Kaitos? Do you want the Reanimating Tombs? Do you want to go like more like Lightning Bolts or whatever? Like, but for the most part, they were like, it's the matchups felt very samey, even if you were playing something out of the box like we do all the time. And so I hope that there's a little bit more variety now.
No, I fully agree with you. And I do hope that there's like this is gonna work out. We're gonna get some more variety and get people to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I just think while a lot of the unbans we talked about probably would have very little impact or some impact, but nothing too crazy. I think when unbans happen, it feels a lot more fun because you've
Yeah.
got a new toy. Versus when something's getting banned, you're like, thank God this card's finally gone. But you're
Mhm.
not getting something new. Even if you are, it just doesn't feel the same when you're losing something versus gaining something.
It is functionally unbanning some cards, like
Yeah.
Beanstalk, for example. Um, Another thing that I would say that it's kind of like a thing that I think I touched on the last video, but I didn't quite explain. It's more like it seemed that they really meant to keep cards that are banned in Legacy and banned in Modern, vice versa. Right? Grief was like the only one where they brought back in a way. But now we have Breach also being banned. That is also banned in Legacy. That to me gives me more confidence for Nadal may get or may have to get the axe as well.
100%.
So we'll see about that.
And I think this is the last thing for the video. What deck are you most excited to brew with, with these bands? Like, what is the first thing you've been looking at? Because I know for me, we brewed this a while back, and it was just like a turn too slow often. We had this Felia build with Up the Beanstalk and the Green Overlord, as well as
Yep,
Estra's Evocation.
100%.
The deck felt
Yeah.
so much fun, but it was always just like a turn too slow against Eldrazi, turn too slow against a
Mhm.
lot of decks like Reanimator and stuff like that. You just got your footing just right after, and I'm really excited to see how that deck does in this current meta.
And we also tried to shoe in the Overlord because of, our philosophy was like, oh, if we're like getting our land skill, then we just make more lands. But now it may not even be necessary, and so we'll see how that evolves. I am excited to play red-white decks with either black or blue as the third color. More of like an aggro shell, but that is mostly because of cool, like a lot of support for Mardu and Jeskai in the
Yeah.
the Dragonstorm set. A lot of the 3 mana, like 3 pips, 3 mana cards are just pretty crazy, from my opinion. There's a couple of sieges that look super strong with like very low to the ground creatures like cats, like Assault Pride, Assault Johnny, all that stuff. So that's like one avenue where I really wanna see what can happen. Control gets a couple of tools specifically. I think it's like Monastery Call or something like that, where it's like a 4 mana spell that costs 2 less if it has one card already cast.
Oh yeah.
That feels honestly not horrible because a lot of the times you cannot really afford to play. Like I'm already cutting for Theolingas when I was playing Jeskai, but like this feels like a card that I could realistically want to cast early and often, and also that I can, doesn't lose me the game if I misplay it, like for Theolingas often does. So there's a lot of interest there. Also, we've talked about like a lot of the new sagas from Cans are just like crazy if you can flicker them.
Yeah, we definitely have to make like a
So
video to like show all the stuff that we're excited for. I mean, there's
and
too many
realistically,
cards.
that's yeah. Honestly, yeah, actually, yeah. Like a video of like this is like all of the like I remember like in our chat we were just like, oh, here's like everything that like hey new Feli enabler alerts and stuff like that. So yeah, well, I'm excited to brew and I'm hopeful that the space is not as hostile as it used to be.
Same.
Yeah, those were my thoughts.
All right. Thank you so much to everyone who was watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
See you.
Bye.